You think you have good character because you're polite to waiters, you show up on time, and you return your shopping cart. You don't. That's just being a functional adult. That's the bare minimum of not being a jerk in public. And it's nice, but it's not character. Most people spend their entire lives confusing good behavior with good character. They think character is what you do when people are watching. It's not. Character is what you do when nobody will ever know. When it costs you something real. When the easy lie would save you and the hard truth would destroy you. That's where character lives. And most of us fail the test more than we'd like to admit. I'm about to explain what character actually is, in the simplest way possible with examples that'll make you uncomfortable and probably call out your last 3 decisions. Here's the real definitions. Character is the internal framework that governs your choices when external consequences disappear. It's what you do when you could get away with anything, when nobody would blame you for taking the shortcut, when the universe itself seems to be handing you a free pass. That's the laboratory where character gets tested. Let me break this down with real scenarios because abstract philosophy is useless. You find an envelope with 800 cash in a parking lot. No cameras, no witnesses, no wallet inside, just loose bills. Nobody will ever know. You could pay your light bill that's overdue. The person who lost it probably won't even remember where they dropped it. What do? Most people take the money. They rationalize it. They tell themselves the universe provided. That's not character. That's opportunity met with convenience. Character's the guy who turns it into the police station, knowing he'll never get a thank you, never get recognition, and will go home to figure out how to pay that light bill anyway. That's character. Doing the right thing when the wrong thing is invisible. Here's another one. Your boss takes credit for your idea in a meeting. Everyone thinks it was his genius. He gets the promotion you deserved. You have 2 options. Expose him and look petty, or stay silent and let injustice win. Most people stay silent. They tell themselves it's professionalism, that they're taking the high road. But here's the truth. Sometimes character isn't about being nice. It's about standing up when it's uncomfortable. It's confronting your boss privately and saying this was my work, and you know it. Not in front of everyone to humiliate him, but in his office where it costs you something to speak, where he could retaliate, where you might lose your job. That's character. Defending truth even when truth doesn't defend you. Let's go deeper. You cheated on your partner 2 years ago. One time. They never found out. You've been faithful ever since. The relationship is good now. Telling them would destroy everything. They'd leave. You'd lose the life you built. Nobody knows. The past is dead. What do? Most people bury it. They tell themselves it would hurt more to confess than to stay quiet. That they're protecting their partner from unnecessary pain. But here's what that actually is. Self-protection disguised as compassion. Character is telling them anyway, knowing they'll leave, knowing you'll lose everything, knowing it will hurt them, but doing it because they deserve to make an informed choice about who they're with. That's brutal. That's terrifying. And that's terrifying. And that's character. You see the pattern now? Character isn't about being good when it's easy. It's about doing what's right when it costs you everything, and nobody will ever applaud. Most people think they have character because they've never been tested. They've never faced a moment where lying would save them and honesty would ruin them. They've never had to choose between their reputation and their integrity when the two were in direct conflict. And because they've never faced that choice, they assume they'd pass. They're wrong. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't build character in the big moments. You build it in the tiny invisible ones that nobody sees. When you're alone in your apartment and you said you'd work out, but you're tired. When you told yourself you'd stop scrolling at 10 p.m., but it's 1 a.m. When you promised yourself you'd stop eating sugar, but the cookies are right there and nobody's watching. Those moments feel meaningless. They're not. Those are character training sessions. Every time you do what you said you'd do when nobody's keeping score, you're building the framework that will hold you when the real test comes. Because here's what people don't understand. Character isn't a switch you flip when things get serious. It's not something you summon in a crisis. It's the accumulated weight of 10,000 tiny decisions where you kept your word to yourself, where you did the hard thing when the easy thing was invisible. That's the foundation. And if you don't have that foundation, you will crumble when the real test comes. You'll take the money. You'll stay silent. You'll bury the truth. Not because you're a bad person, but because you never trained for that moment. Let's talk about what character isn't, because this is where most people get confused. Character is not reputation. Reputation is what people think you are. Character is what you actually are. You can have a spotless reputation and be completely hollow inside. In fact, the people most obsessed with their reputation are usually the ones with the least character, because they're managing perception, not truth. They're performing goodness for an audience instead of being good when there's no stage. Character is not niceness. Nice is a social strategy. Nice is how you avoid conflict and keep people comfortable. Character sometimes makes people uncomfortable. It confronts. It challenges. It refuses to let lies sit unchallenged just because speaking up would ruin the V. The nicest people I know often have the least character because they've spent their entire lives prioritizing harmony over honesty. They'll smile at your face and never tell you you're destroying your life, because telling you would be awkward. Character is not morality. Morality is the rulebook. Character is what you do when the rulebook doesn't cover your situation. When there's no clear right answer. When every option hurts someone. Morality is black and white. Character operates in the gray. It's the person who has to choose between lying to protect someone they love or telling the truth and destroying them. That's not a moral question. That's a character test. And how you navigate that reveals who you actually are. Here's the test most people fail. You're in a group conversation. Someone tells a story. It's funny. Everyone's laughing. But you were there. You know the story isn't true. Not maliciously false, just exaggerated for effect. Do you correct them? Most people don't. They let it slide. It's harmless. Who cares? But here's what's actually happening. You're choosing comfort over truth. You're participating in a small lie, because correcting it would make things weird. That's the opposite of character. Character is the person who says, actually, that's not quite how it happened, even though everyone will roll their eyes. Even though you'll look like the annoying fact checker, even though the story was funnier the wrong way. That's character. Protecting truth even when truth is inconvenient. Now here's the part that's going to sting. Think about the last time you lied. Not a big lie, a small one. You told someone you were busy when you just didn't want to hang out. You said you'd call them back and you didn't. You told your boss the project was almost done when you haven't started. These feel like survival, like social lubrication. But here's what they actually are. Character erosion. Every time you lie when you didn't have to, you're training yourself that truth is optional. That honesty is a strategy, not a default. And you're weakening the part of you that will need to stand firm when it actually matters. Let me tell you about the moment I realized I didn't have the character I thought I had. I was in college. Group project. 4 people. I did about 60 of the work. One guy did maybe 10. When we presented, the professor asked who contributed what. I could have said I carried it. It was true, but everyone was standing there. The guy who did nothing would be humiliated. So the first said we all contributed equally. I thought I was being kind, mature, taking the high road. I was wrong. I was protecting my reputation as a team player at the expense of truth. I was lying to avoid awkwardness. That's not character. That's cowardice dressed as grace. Character would have been saying I did the majority. This person did very little, and here's the proof. Not to punish him, but because truth matters. Because the professor deserved accurate information. Because letting him get credit he didn't earn was participating in a lie. But the first didn't have the spine for that. I chose comforter, and that taught me something crucial. You don't know your character until it costs you something to reveal it. So how do you build real character? Not the performance version, the real version. Start with this. Make promises to yourself and keep them even when nobody's watching. Tell yourself you'll wake up at 6 a.m. Do it. Tell yourself you'll work out 3 times this week. Do it. Tell yourself you'll stop eating after 8 p.m. Do it. These aren't about fitness or productivity. They're about proving to yourself that your word means something, even when the only person who knows is you. Next, practice truth in low-stakes situations. When someone asks how you're doing and you're not fine, say you're not fine. When someone asks if you liked the movie and you didn't, say you didn't. Stop performing agreeableness for social points. Start defaulting to honesty even when honesty is awkward. This trains you. So when the high-stakes moment comes, when lying would save you and truth would ruin you, you have a foundation of honesty to stand on. Third, do the right thing once when it costs you something big. Return money you found. Admit a mistake that will get you in trouble. Confess something you could have buried forever. Do it once. Feel the pain. Survive it. Because once you prove to yourself that you can do the right thing when it destroys you, you'll know you have character. And that knowledge will carry you through every future test. Here's what nobody tells you about character. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't get rewarded most of the time. The person who returns the 800 doesn't get a parade. The person who admits they cheated gets dumped. The person who speaks truth in the meeting gets labeled difficult. Character costs you. Constantly. And most people quit because they think good behavior should be rewarded. It's not. Character is the reward. Knowing you can trust yourself. Knowing that when the moment comes, you won't fold. That's the prize. Not applause. Not recognition. Just the quiet certainty that you're solid. Here's my challenge for you. This week, do one thing that costs you something and benefits no one but your integrity. Admit a mistake you could have hidden. Return something you could have kept. Tell a truth that will make someone uncomfortable. Do it not because it will be rewarded, but because it's right. And notice how it feels. It won't feel heroic. It will feel terrifying and stupid, and like you just sabotaged yourself for no reason. That feeling is character being built. That's the weight room for your integrity. And if you can do it once, you can do it again. Most people go through life thinking character is something you either have or don't, like it's genetic. It's not. It's built. It's built. One uncomfortable choice at a time. One moment where you choose truth over comfort. One decision where you do what's right even though what's easy is right there, staring at you. That's how it's built. Slowly, painfully, in the dark. Where nobody's watching, where nobody will ever know. That's where real character lives. So here's the truth. You probably don't have the character you think you have. Most of us don't. We have a performance, a reputation, a carefully managed image of ourselves that we present to the world and believe is real. But character isn't what you do on stage. It's what you do in the wings, when the curtain's closed. When nobody's clapping. When the only person who will know is the person staring back at you in the mirror. And that person knows the truth. They always do. Stop lying to yourself about who you are based on how you act when people are watching. Start asking what you do when nobody will ever know, when it costs you everything and earns you nothing. That's the only question that matters. And if you don't like the answer, you can change it. But only if you stop pretending you already have what you haven't built yet. Now tell me honestly, when was the last time you did the right thing when the wrong thing was invisible? Drop a comment. Because the person brave enough to admit they failed that test is exactly the kind of person who can pass it next time. Subscribe for more brutally honest content that challenges who you think you are and shows you who you could become.